Hello, church. We're on day 26 of our Psalms devotional. So we're going to be looking through Psalm 26. And I'm just going to jump straight in. Psalm 26 starts like this. It says, "Vindicate me, O Lord, for I have walked in my integrity and I have trusted in the Lord without wavering. Prove me, O Lord, and try me. Test my heart and mind, for your steadfast love is before my eyes and I walk in your faithfulness." I love the fact that David jumps straight in with a bold request, "Test me, O Lord." And, David knew what it was to be tested. David is a man who walked through his tests with incredible courage and confidence. He stood before a lion and he stood before a bear and he stood before the warrior of warriors, Goliath. But he also, he knew what it was to be hated. He knew what it was to be hunted. He stood the test of being right when nobody was listening to him, and the test of being wrong when everybody was watching him. He knew tests. David knew leadership tests and personal tests, and he walked through them all with confidence. And I think whatever scenario this virus situation finds us in, I think we can all relate to the fact that it's testing. We're seeing our hearts tested and our minds tested spiritually, physically, mentally. There are tests for us in this season, but we get to learn from David, who walked through tests with such confidence, and even now in this psalm invites the test of the Lord because he's so confident in the integrity of his life. What I love about this psalm is that David actually shows us some ways to approach tests with confidence. So I'm just going to pull a couple of those out for us now as we read together. First of all, in verses 4 and 5, David says, "I do not sit with men of falsehood, nor do I consort with hypocrites. I hate the assembly of evildoers, and I will not sit with the wicked." David knew the power of influence, not just influencing other people, but actually the power that other people's opinions can have upon us, and the way that we need to sit ourselves in right influence, under right influence. And, a lot of that comes down to the people we spend time with. So a lot of us aren't really spending time with anyone at the moment, and you might think, I'm not really being influenced by anybody. I'm not having those kind of conversations. I'm not having close friendship with anybody right now. But the truth is, we're all open to all kinds of voices in our lives, the voices that we follow on social media, the things that we read, the things that we watch and enjoy and buy into, and all of those things influence us in some way. But David approached his test with confidence because he knew that he was cutting out the negative influences in his life. And this reminds me of Psalm 1 right back at the beginning when we read about, I do not sit in the seat of mockers. I don't stand in the ways of the wicked. So David is somebody who's very conscious in his life of the influences that he's around. And I think it's a really great opportunity for us also to just check our influences. Are the things that make us laugh honorable and respectful things? Are the things that we're reading things that invoke a positive response from us or a negative, critical, complaining response? Are we engaging in even scrolling through our feeds, or the things that we pick up and read, the articles that we click on? Are those things that ultimately make us feel positive and praise-filled at the end of reading them, or do they make us feel frustrated and negative and angry? David knew the power of influence, and so he was intent on having people in his life who would not have a negative influence on his soul. And then he goes on in verse 6 and says, "I wash my hands in innocence and go around your altar, O Lord, proclaiming thanksgiving aloud and telling all your wondrous deeds. O Lord, I love the habitation of your house and the place where your glory dwells." He's saying, I'm not spending time with negative people, but what I am doing is I'm getting myself in the presence of God. And when I'm there, I'm choosing to give thanks. I'm choosing to speak your goodness aloud. I'm choosing to vocalize your faithfulness. And I'm taking time to be where your glory is, Lord. So he gives us some don'ts. He also gives us some do's. Let's focus on the power and the beauty of God's faithfulness, of God's goodness. And let's make sure that we're vocalizing it and spending time in that. And then he goes on, verse 9, to say, "Don't sweep my soul away with the sinners, nor my life with the bloodthirsty, in whose hands are evil devices and whose right hands are full of bribes." He's also saying, my motivation is pure. I'm not motivated by greed or selfishness. I'm not motivated by envy or pride. I'm not with those guys. I'm making sure that my motivations are checked. And it goes on to say, "As for me, I will walk in my integrity. Redeem me and be gracious to me. My foot stands on level ground." When we find ourselves in a test, We need to know where we stand. We need to know what the solid ground is underneath us, the unshakable things that we're rooting our lives in. And he finishes up by saying, in the great assembly, I will bless the Lord. It's a decision that he's making outside any other influences. I, personal, will, decisive, bless the Lord. And I think for some of us, we need to make some decisive statements of what we will do when we feel like we're in a test. What will our response be? Will you praise? Will you pray? Will you speak out thanksgiving? Will you talk to somebody? Will you confess some things on your heart? Whatever it is, let's make some decisive statements just like David does, to remove negative influences, to focus on the presence of the Lord, and to check our motives in the test so that we can walk confidently on, knowing that God is seeing the integrity of our heart. Let's be decisive in this time, guys, and even have a plan for when the test feels overwhelming. David says, I will bless the Lord. And I think some of us have some will statements too that we need to be making at this time. Guys, jump back on tomorrow for my favorite psalm with Praveen, Psalm 27. It's going to be brilliant.